Walkerton, Indiana. This 18-hole public golf course offers a pro shop, practice putting green, snack bar, and dining room, all in a friendly environment. We specialize in outings for your company, church, school, and fundraising needs. Whether you want to start your day with a round of golf, spend an afternoon in the sun, or an evening with your friends, Whispering Pines is the place for you. Life is good at the Pines.
Welcome to the Fast Break, the fastest 15 minutes in the NBA. Rod and Chris, thank you very much for taking care of the balls and brew section of the show. Really good interview. Really appreciate talk a little bit of golf, didn't we?
Yes, we got to have Matt Roberts on. You know, if we're going to talk golf, we got to have our guy who worked as a golf pro for a while, then was installing golf simulators, right? You know, Roberts he's got his ear to the ground in the golf world. No one better to talk to than our guy.
Gives us some of those inside nuggets because he's in the know, because he lived in Scottsdale. He knows some people, right, Rod?
That's right. He didn't specifically name drop, but it worked. You know, we all heard it. It was okay.
Well, we have NBA to talk about. We only have a couple games left on the schedule. And speaking of games, speaking of schedules, speaking of Jimmy, I'm going to say it right now. Champion. That's all I got to say. 435 wins in the Wins League for me, 385 for Chris, 375 for Rod. So technically speaking, that second place is still going strong there. But one thing we need to talk about, Chris King, your number one pick, the Milwaukee Bucks, have 49 wins right now, but they are missing something huge. Your boy Giannis goes down on a non-contact injury. How's your heart?
Those are always the scariest, right? The non-contact. You're like, that's usually a tear, a pop, a tweak, a sprain, a strain. I mean, it's something that's not usually good for Milwaukee.
No, Rod, when someone falls down and grabs themselves, not good usually, right?
Certainly not, but I mean, Giannis of all people is a guy that we thought literally like bent his knee the way it wasn't supposed to, and then came back a couple of games later and they went on to win the NBA Finals. So I think he's going to be off here for a couple of games. He'll come back as not quite fully ready to go Giannis, and then he'll be rolling. But the problem for the Bucks is I don't know if they are guaranteed to have a second round series, so they need him to get ramping up as quickly as possible.
And I wonder if that'll affect our MVP table, which we need to get back to, and we'll get back to that here in a little bit. But Rod, some good news for one of your boys. I'm interested to see your take on it, though. Jrue Holiday, a Celtic for the next 4 years at $135 million. How are you thinking that's going to turn out for your boys, the Celtics?
I think it's an awful lot of money, but if not Joe Lacob, that's the guy who left the Celtics. I'm not entirely sure. Witt is the guy's name who's the owner of the Celtics.
Gross.
Anyway, yeah, Witt Grossbart, I think. Anyway, if he doesn't mind paying out, the luxury tax for a little while, that's fine, because the Celtics will have the ability to keep signing these guys because they're all on their roster. What I worry about is the future of Derek White, because he might be the guy that becomes a little too expensive for the Celtics britches here. I like a lot of what Derek White brings to the table, but I love a lot of what Jrue Holiday brings to the table. He's really the perfect fourth wheel. I'm not entirely sure you can go out and find a guy better to be the fourth option on your team. Now, when you get a guy this advanced in his career, you're going to have to pay a bit of a premium. That's just the way it works with years of service. And frankly, with past contracts, a guy's not going to take a pay cut all the way down to league minimum in a lot of cases. So you're overpaying for him here. But I think what you need a fourth guy to do, Jrue Holiday is going to do very, very well.
He doesn't care if he scores. He just cares that the team wins. Now, Chris, that's 4 years at $135 million, not $1.35. I saw you're like, that's not that big of a deal. With the new NBA TV contract coming up, do you see this being a problem, or you think this is just going to be par for the course?
I mean, we've been conditioned that this is par for the course, right? This is just salaries just keep exponentially growing every single year. New contracts, you can't get paid less than the guy did last year, so it's just going to keep going up and up and up.
He's actually saving the Celtics a little bit of money next year, though, because if he would have picked up his player option, he'd be getting paid more money than what the Celtics are paying him now on the extension.
So many good things happening. There's got to be something negative, right?
We have
Right?
to,
Right?
have to do something about this situation. The momentum is dying. I don't understand no more distractions, but I do believe we should all follow one path in life. Hubris and ego and pride. Sorry, all that was a complete lie. This is going to be a Rod Nation for the ages, probably. It's going to be the only time that this Rod Nation subject is ever the subject of Rod Nation. And this week's subject of Rod Nation is me, myself. I deserve scorn. I'm going to yell at myself here for allowing my personal feelings about a player's off-court antics to color my predictions. All right. I let my hatred for Kyrie Irving blind me to what the Dallas Mavericks can be. I predicted that they would flame out, not make the playoffs, and that Jason Kidd might be fired. Okay. I could not be any more wrong on both of those fronts. I predicted Kyrie Irving might not even play half of the games for the Mavericks this year. Dead wrong on that. They have lost 2 games in their last 18 or 19 games, something like that. They are rounding into form at the exact time. And I think that the Western Conference Finals are about to be a Dolly Parton situation. And what I mean by that is some double Ds. Denver versus Dallas. All right. That's what we're going to see in the Western Conference Finals. And so I've got to give Rod Damnation for myself for not understanding that just because I think Kyrie Irving is a colossal douchebag does not necessarily mean the Dallas Mavericks will be a bad basketball team.
Would that be a 3D then, Rod? The Dallas Denver douchebag in there anywhere?
If you want it to be, Jimmy.
Chris, what are your thoughts on Rod? You hate Rod and you love double Ds. I'm sure this is going to be great for you.
I don't think that we will get Denver versus Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. We will get that in the second round. Dallas is either your 5 or 4 seed, so they would have to get past the Clippers in the first round and then end up going...
Semantics. Who cares about what can really happen? My doubles D's line was fabulous.
And my follow-up
it wasn't
pretty decent. So, okay, so you do hate Rod. Okay, that's fine. I think that I don't understand what's going on our show sometimes. I really don't. So Rod is definitely pro Kyrie Irving and everything he stands for now because he's such a terrific basketball player. We've learned that. I want to go to the MVP table before we go to anything else, just because I think it's an interesting discussion to have now. And I don't think I have the drop, which is perfectly fine. No problem with that. I'm going to be at the head of the table, even though Roman Reigns is no longer the head of the table. Acknowledge him, though, for being an amazing champion.
He's always the head of the table. He just currently is away from the table.
Okay, that's fine. So we have the MVP table. I want each of us to talk about someone here. I'm going to pick first because it's my fast break, my segment. I'm going to go Jokic. I think he's got to be the MVP again. They might end up with the best record in the league. He's had some Murray situations to deal with, and he's just an all-around the best player in the NBA right now. I'm sorry, that's the case. You can make some arguments for whoever you want. It's Jokic. I think he's number 1 in the MVP table.
Yeah, and I'm about to make an argument against Jokic because you said people are allowed to do that, Jimmy, and I will do that right now.
Allowed.
I think there's a player from Eastern Europe in the Western Conference who's playing better than Nikola Jokic, and that is Luka Doncic. 77 down in Dallas, all right? That team is darn near unstoppable right now. Luka can do no wrong. He dictates offense more than anybody out there. And if you told me that Jokic was a lockdown defender, I'd say fine, he can be the MVP. But neither one of them can play defense. So I don't know. I think there's a really, really good shot that Luka Doncic is garnering a lot of support and might sneak in the back door here and get the MVP. I'm going Luka.
Chris, is there anyone else that you think has even a chance at getting the number 1 overall selection for MVP?
I'm so glad that Rod brought up defense when he started talking in the MVP conversation, because what you need in MVP is a full, well-rounded player, not just an offensive juggernaut, but you need somebody that can get stocks, Rod, as well as run the offense, as well as score points, as well as has usage usage rate of 33%, a PER of over 32. And that
Wembanyama is
is
going to be rookie of the year, Chris. He can't be MVP too.
talking about SGA. SGA goes out there and has just gotten Oklahoma City back up to where they have been neck and neck with Denver all season long. All right. We cannot ignore what Oklahoma City has done with SGA running the helm.
Jimmy, can I say something here?
Let me look at the notes. Yes, you can.
I don't want to be a fan of a league where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander wins MVP. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't. He's not flashy. He's not exciting. I don't want to live in a world where Shea Gilgeous-Alexander wins the MVP for an Oklahoma City Thunder team that has fallen back to the 3rd seed, that is probably going to get beat in the 2nd round of the playoffs. I just don't want to live in that world. We all remember how big of a flat it was when Dirk Nowitzki won his MVP and then the Mavericks got beat in the 1st round. I just don't want to live in a world where that happens. Give Shea plenty of time to win the MVP. This year ain't it.
Chris, your rebuttal, sir. Screw you, Rod.
Give it some new blood, all right? Luka would be new blood. I think one thing that hurts Luka, though, is Luka does this every year, and maybe we are used to it, and it doesn't stand out as much. And it's not fair to Luka, but that's why I think he gets overlooked now, because this is what we expect of him. And it seems like the NBA keeps giving it to people who maybe we don't expect it from. And maybe this is why SGA would get it this year.
Well, Chris, I think you're on the right track there, but this year's a little different. What Rod said, there was so much bias against the Mavericks coming in. Even a month ago, there was so much bias against the Mavericks, and they just started coming on. And Luka's been consistent throughout the year, taking his team to that next level. I mean, they're a 5 seed right now. Are you kidding me? They were thinking 8, 9 earlier. They're getting there. So I think that might be okay this year. So I want to know, Rod, I think you've got Luka first in your MVP ballot, correct?
I do. I got Luka. Now listen, I'm going to admit my bias here, because I literally have spent numerous years on this podcast railing against the guy out in Denver. He's kind of undeniable, but I've definitely have my personal bias against him. So I'm a Luka guy for sure.
Chris, of Luka or Jokic, who you got?
I would lean towards giving the MVP to Luka.
Okay.
And I think part of that is because this is what we expect from Jokic. You know, so it's something that we're used to. It doesn't stand out anymore. So I want to give it to a guy who has been overlooked, who has finally gotten his team up into the upper tier and contending in the West again. So give it to Luka.
Skip going. It's fine.
You won 62 games. What happens?
You're the Joker.
You're the king of the NBA. All right. They've been here almost all year except for a few weeks. All right. This is the creme de la creme, the Cuban, the Monte Cristo. This is the Boston Celtics.
The cream will rise to the top, brother.
Boston Celtics are your king, your queen.
I'm going to give that to Denver. All right. They look like they have this locked in. I know they're only a game up on Minnesota and Oklahoma City right now, but listen, until someone knocks them off, and we're at playoff time. All right. We meet here next week. Playoffs are happening. So Denver's the queen.
Yeah, I think that's got to be it. We love us some Western Conference. I'm interested to see. I mean, the Celtics, the first Eastern Conference team we've mentioned in a minute here. Who is your prince?
That's the Dallas Mavericks. Rod already talked about them. They lost 2 games like in their last 20. All right, they've won 5 in a row. They've gotten back up into that number 4 seed conversation. They're a game behind the Clippers, I believe it is. Yep. So they are playing to win, and that's what they're doing. They deserve to be the prince.
So does losing 13 games in a row get you to the Jester?
I mean, Rod kind of railed on me when I made them the gesture a couple weeks ago because they were playing themselves out of the playoffs,
Sure.
and I think they just justified why I made them a gesture. Maybe I was a little bit earlier than most, but they've certainly became a joke of the league.
And who is that?
That's the Utah Jazz.
Thank you.
No, the Raptors. The Raptors gave away. I mean, the game they gave away the other night. I can't remember who it was. They were up by like 11 points with like 43 seconds left to go, and then they somehow ended up losing. I mean, the Raptors are like they're just so trying to give away games right now. But I suppose
Was that against the? That was against the. Who was that against?
It was a playoff contender.
The Nets. It was against the Nets, right? Or no?
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. It was the thing that the NBA tries to get us out of with the 65 game threshold and the play-in tournament and all of that, and it still happens with the terrible teams. And the only way you get out of the tanking conversation is if your coach is Greg Popovich and you have the world's most phenomenal rookie on your team, because the Spurs are putrid too, but nobody ever really talks about them.
The Spurs are very bad. Before we leave the fast break, Chris, what are you looking forward to next week?
I am looking forward to a very possible play-in game between the Lakers and the Warriors.
Okay. Rod.
Jimmy, can I take us off to another basketball topic here before we actually close?
Sure.
Can we?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Can we please talk about the fact that 18.5 million people decided to tune their television sets to ABC on 3:00 in the afternoon on a Sunday to watch the Iowa women's Hawkeyes take on South Carolina in the women's national championship game, Jimmy? And that was something. That South Carolina team, I'm telling you what, I don't recall seeing a women's basketball team play quite like that. I will admit to not watching enough women's basketball here recently, but seeing the style of play that South Carolina played out there, it was amazing. And Iowa, to me, was Hickory. I mean, they literally were just like, "Hey, Caitlin, we got to get you a shot here. Caitlin, please save us. Caitlin.
I'll make it." She did, but not all of them. I mean, she did a really good job there. And wait, that was at 3:00 in the afternoon. That 18 million people. It wasn't at 9:20 on a Monday.
No.
You mean people could have actually watched this game and then gone about their day afterwards?
Yeah. Crazy. I know.
Weird.
Crazy. They even had 14 million people, I think, tune in at like 9:00 on that Saturday night for the semifinal game.
3 consecutive games in a row Iowa played. They broke the all-time women's basketball mark. And then, obviously, as you said on Sunday, it was the biggest watched basketball game in 5 years. The biggest watched basketball game in 5 years. Speaking of that, Chris, the Indiana Fever next year. Well, it's a 2023 season. They had one nationally televised game. 2024 season. 36 of their 40 are nationally televised games.
Let's go.
Let's go, Fever. That is amazing for the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I have to imagine that it's pretty much a done deal that she will sign with them. Like, there's never been a WNBA player to refuse to go to a team, right?
I believe her boyfriend works for the Pacers. She's going to the Fever.
Also,
it's okay.
Don't put that out in the air, Chris. And let's also throw Chris a bone here, Jimmy, while we're on the NCAA. Let's just close out here. Chris,
Sure.
Come on. You got to glow a little bit here. I mean, you love nothing more than seeing the Boilers go down, and they certainly did in the championship game.
I tell you what, you want to talk about giving a Hoosier fan a heart attack, all right? The Boilers did just that. Playing tough, Thank goodness that UConn came out in that second half and said, we're not here to play around anymore, and this is how it's going to go, because UConn was a tough team. And I will give Purdue all the credit. They did essentially eliminate the demon of getting knocked out in the first round by a 16 seed. Almost pulled it Virginia, not quite, so thank God. But no banners yet for you, Purdue fans.
Could anybody else on Purdue make a shot? Honestly, could anybody else on Purdue make a shot? For goodness sakes, Matt Painter, could you maybe have the boys take a few more than 7 3-pointers? What are you doing with your gray hair?
The bench had zero points.
And with that, you've been listening to The Fast Break, the fastest 19 minutes and 27 seconds in the NBA.
Could you tell that Jimmy was a little tired this evening and was ready to get this thing over and done with?
Goodbye, Internet.